people in some retirement developments are being financially exploited. That's according to the campaign group Age UK.
Yes, it claims many residents are being charged too much for maintenance, insurance and even selling their properties.
In leafy Newbury, 80-year-old Stanley Hodges was hoping for a quiet retirement. Instead, he and his wife were drawn into a legal battle over excessive fees in their privately managed block.
If I was a lot younger, it would be a lot easier. But at our age, it is traumatic. It's frustrating.
They own the leasehold to their flat but have to pay an annual service charge to the freehold company. It costs £2,500 and covers maintenance, security, insurance and the rent for an on-site manager's flat. But 2 years ago, Stanley found the costs had been unfairly calculated.
When one compares the charges that they wanted for the house manager's flat here as compared with the charges that you pay for other two-bedroom flats in the town of Newbury, they were just ridiculously overpriced. And this is the court case.
Eventually, the freeholder agreed with residents to reduce the charge, but Mr Hodges still had to go to court to get the refund of just under £500 for his share of the charge. There are currently around 200,000 older people living in private retirement developments. For many, the extra support and security available is ideal, and demand for this type of accommodation is increasing as our population ages. In the next 30 years, the number of people aged 75 and over is set to double. But as complaints mount about unfair service charges and fees, Age UK says this whole sector needs much better regulation. It says limits should be set on how much a landlord can charge for a manager's flat. There should be greater transparency for service charges, and it says transfer fees charged when residents sell their flats should be abolished. The group claims that in other cases it's come across people are afraid to raise their concerns with their management.
People have contacted us and they've said that it's very difficult to make a complaint because there can be all sorts of pressures if you do so. It can be all sorts of psychological pressures, so it can be very difficult to make a complaint, very intimidating.
There is a code of practice advising how managing agents should operate, but it's not binding.
We'd like to see it a requirement that everyone is obliged to follow the code of practice and to be a member of an organisation like the ARHM.
The government says it wants to ensure residents are protected from unscrupulous landlords, but it believes there's a need to strike a balance between tenants' rights and landlords' responsibilities, and says that the current legislative framework can deliver that balance. But those who've been forced to take their case to a tribunal or court say it's a daunting task. Susanna Streeter, BBC News.
Well, Andrew Harrop is from the charity Age UK. Let's just pick up on some of those points, Andrew. A particularly daunting task, really, isn't it? When, this is your home and you're trying to take on people who perhaps control your home. How difficult is it?
People want peace of mind when they go into these retirement communities. The last thing they want is to have a big argument with the landlord or managing agent. But some groups have been successful in challenging them when they've got together and acted as a group of residents. When you're all on your own, it is obviously a very intimidating process.
And how should people be alert to the fact that they may be being overcharged? I mean, we saw the man in our piece had looked at other flats in the same town. Is that what people should be looking at?
There's a variety of reasons why service charges are going up very high rates each year. Things like the management company overcharging for the manager's flat rent, which we just heard about.
Yeah.
Also, just not getting a good deal on cleaning, servicing charges, insurance. It's not in the interest of the managing company. They're passing all the price onto the residents, and they frankly don't get a good deal for them.
Is it that older people are actually being targeted because they're more vulnerable to this?
There are examples of unscrupulous agents and landlords, but often it's just the sector being a bit flabby, not thinking about good value for money. When you're talking about people with fixed incomes in retirement who can't afford very high increases year after year, we want to see a cap on very high price rises each year, so that people, when they go into these retirement communities, know what the service charge is going to be and have a reasonable expectation of how much it will rise in the future.
Yes. I know, if more than 50% of residents agree, they can actually buy out the management company. It's called the right to manage. But again, it's just a to take on, isn't it?
Particularly if you're relatively frail in retirement, when you've chosen one of these communities because it is hassle-free. People don't want, in most cases, to have all the complications of running a scheme.
Okay, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.